Plants. The Green Frontier. These are the discussions of the podcast Horticult. Its continuing mission to talk about strange new cultivars, to seek out new flowers and plant them, to boldly garden like no one has before. Hey, this is Blaine from the Horticult. What's up, yos? So today's podcast is on rapid decline. Why rapid decline? Because Brad has a wisteria that went kaputski, and it was alive, blooming awesome, and then just all of a sudden not there. And I know people out there have had this issue, had this tree, beautiful tree, fine, and then boom, dead the next year. I had an issue with one of my trees. He's going through it with his wisteria. He's trying to diagnose it and figure it out, and he's just going to tell us about what happened and things that we can look for in our plants that all of a sudden go kaputski, and maybe we can save them, maybe we can't, but we'll give them a try. But sometimes stuff happens. All right, so here we go with rapid decline. Let's get it on. This is Blaine.
Velkommen, this is Brad.
And you're listening to the Horticult. Thanks for being a part of us. So, today's topic will be on your wisteria. So,
yeah.
We want to talk about your wisteria.
Yeah, so let me give you a little bit of background. This year, 2018, I thought I'd do something really different. And I wanted to, starting very early in the spring, early spring, I wanted to start watering my yard less this year. So I started watering once a week in April, and took that all the way through May, stretched it as much as I could into the early part of June. I had to bump it up to 2 days a week. Okay. And what that is, it's not the whole day. It's just that 1 day per week for 10 minutes. Whoa. Not a lot of water.
That's not a lot.
But my thinking is I want to stress my plants out, get them to grow deeper roots, and survival of the fittest was kind of my thinking of my plants, because my yard is completely packed full of all different types of plants and perennials and whatever, and they're pretty tough varieties, and I thought I'm gonna do this so that I can see who is the strongest plant, and then I'm going to give extra focus to that plant, and then at the same time save money and save water. As time went on, and I could see the stress happening and everything. It wasn't until I saw the stress in July, the stress on my wisteria vine. And these wisteria vines that I have 5 of them, okay? And they're all mature. They're all 20 plus years old, about 24 years old. And there was one in particular that I have growing up a post in the front yard, and it goes across the garage area and up the rake. I'm guessing it's probably lengthwise maybe 65 feet long.
Sweet.
Yeah. So anyway, it's an impressive vine, and there's been a lot of input to that vine, meaning maintenance, pruning 3 times a year, fertilizing and giving it extra amendments of iron chelate and things like this to green it up. But what I had noticed, this is kind of an interesting thing, is that last year, okay, 2017, spring of 2017, it bloomed really super awesome, profuse, like I've never seen it before. That one in particular, it's a Japanese wisteria. I'm like, oh, this is great. Didn't think anything of it. Well, 2018 comes rolling around, and it tried to bloom, but then it failed. And I'm like, oh man, maybe that's because I cut the water back. But the other wisteria bloomed, and the Chinese wisteria and whatever, and I thought, okay, so maybe it wasn't the water. Well, long story short, as I'm kind of coming around after doing a little bit of research on that wisteria, is there's three components that create wisteria failure, like drastic failure, quick death, right? And two of them are pathogens. One is called honey fungus, and it's visual on the leaf. You'd recognize some like pustules and things like this, and you'd be like, "Whoa, what is that? What's going on?" That's honey fungus, and so it's like a foliar disease. The other one is a root rot or a root fungus. It's called Phytophthora, and pretty common in the greenhouse. We're constantly like treating for Phytophthora and other root rots, but that's a common one among wisteria vine. And then the third reason why a wisteria would completely fail that fast is a graft failure. So not all wisteria are grafted, but most of them are, meaning it has a rootstock, and then it has the upper portion or the scion. We've talked about before in past podcasts, sessions, where the advantage is to grafting fruit trees. And
do you want to reiterate some of those just to touch, because if some people haven't listened to it, so like
some of the fruit trees,
or just why to graft? So it's like you get it to maturity quicker. Maybe the rootstock is can handle more tolerances.
Yeah, more maybe like pH
difficult. Yep. Like that's one thing that wisteria is kind of deals with iron. You know, it has a hard time with iron, so maybe this rootstock is a little bit more can handle iron deficiencies better, whatever.
Yeah, but in fruit trees, you're obviously you're buying that tree for the fruit, right? And the fruit on the scion wood is going to be the most delicious fruit and the largest and ripen quickest. But its rootstock is super, super weak or very prone to
issues,
Phytophthora, who knows? So that's why you'd graft, right? Yeah, that's why you'd graft with fruit trees. And with wisteria, I'm not really sure what those issues are, why they would graft. And I'm guessing is that maybe to get a flowering, because not all wisteria that you buy at the store at the nursery are flowering. And you want to make sure when you buy a wisteria vine at the nursery that it is flowering. Because the reason why I say that is because sometimes it can take up to 20 plus years for an immature, from seed, an immature wisteria vine to flower. So, and they do, they'll produce seed, and those seed will drop into the yard once in a while, and I'll see a new little tiny vine coming out. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. But
and then you pull it out. Boom.
Exactly. But yeah, the reason why you would want to buy a flowering wisteria at the nursery is because you could buy one and it would never flower, and not never, but I mean in realistic landscape terms.
Right. Yeah, 20 years for something to flower. That's too
an
long.
Incredible amount of time. So anyway, and wisteria is kind of a cool vine, cool plant. It's they love water. Sometimes you'll see them growing in their native area in Japan and whatnot near water, so kind of riparian areas. It's not uncommon to see those like next to little ponds, lakes, rivers. So they love water.
So for you to do this, to like pull back
the watering in the spring,
that's a risk.
Yeah, and I was I was willing to like see who's going to win out, but what I've come to realize is that there's a matrix of issues with that vine. It wasn't just that I cut the water back, right, and stressed it out.
Yeah.
But that was definitely a part of it. I think that it had an issue already and by pulling the water back, it expressed it incredibly.
Yeah.
And so my first thought was, okay, graft failure. Another thing that I noticed too that I ought to throw out there, if anybody has wisteria, if you start to see it suckering, not unlike a bunch of other plants that you see, shrubbery and whatnot. Actually, aspen trees are great at this. And as soon as you start to see these trees or this vine suckering in your grass or in your beds, you know you've got something's not balanced, right? Something that plant's trying to tell you that it's kind of stressed and it's on its way out, and to start thinking of another option.
Yeah, we've talked about that before too. That's a sign of something's wrong.
Yep. And so, anyway, so knowing that it's that in my case, in my situation, it's not honey fungus. It's not that foliar fungus.
Because you would see it.
I can only assume that it's Phytophthora or the root rot or it's graft failure. I can't visually see that it's graft failure, but I'm seeing the upper portion of the vine, which is usually, as people know with wisteria, they're extremely vigorous. Like their growth is just insane. Like as I had mentioned before, I have to prune that thing back 3 times a year. Typically, you don't have to do that to just about anything.
Yeah, that's a lot of pruning.
But if you don't, then it can get completely out of hand. And so, and that's the nature of it. So that's totally cool for me, and I like to prune, so it works out great. But this year I saw a lot of suckers in the grass and in the nearby beds. I didn't see a lot of new growth, and then all of a sudden I just saw this, like, one branch would die back, and then the next branch would die back, and it just is. It's happening over the course of weeks, which in landscape terms is fast.
Way fast.
Yeah, so...
Well, that kind of reminds me of my Kwanzaa cherry that we've talked about before. It was always suckering. The year before it gave up the ghost, it bloomed mad. It was just like... So it just pushed out everything it had to try to... pass its genetic whatever on to the next, because it knew it was ending. So it, like, I have this little bit, I'm going to just push it all out, and then the next season it just, everything dried up and it died. And it could have been, I mean, those are also grafted, so it could have had a graft failure like that.
Yep.
But yeah, you don't even think about it until it's already passed.
No, you're thinking, wow, that was so phenomenal. I got to tell all my friends to come check it out the next year. It's going to be great.
It did.
It did. So yeah, long story short, I'm working like mad to try to keep this alive.
Well, think about how many man hours you have maintaining that one vine.
Yeah, it's a lot. And it's brought a lot of, like, it's kind of like the maybe the crown jewel of my, or it's super iconic of my home. Like when you drive up, you're like, whoa, what's that? And it's the first thing you see, and is that vine, because it's super unique. So and here's the thing. So let's just say that I can't save it, and it's all good. I've come to terms with that already. If I can, that's great. But if I can't, it's just another reminder of this circle of life, with plants and people and animals and everything else, that it's going to be okay. And I can now plant another one if I want. Mm-hmm. Man, that's how easy is that? And then I can, with all the years of learning of pruning and having it twist just a certain perfect way, I can use that knowledge on the new one, and manage it a little bit better than the first one. The first one was just kind of a little bit haphazard, and it looks awesome, but I'm talking as if it's dead already.
I know. If you could bring it back, though, that's
it would be
awesome.
I'll definitely, if I can do that, I'll know by Ultimately, I'll know within the next 2 months if it's survived.